world, and thank you for joining me for another chat, which industry chat, which I've had today. Very lucky to have with me Marcus Wells, who's down in Adelaide. Hi, Marcus. Thanks for joining me.
G'day, mate. How's it going, Kim? Good to see you. Been a long
Thank.
time.
It has. It has been a bit of a time since we've caught up and chatted for a bit. I guess for everyone who's just kind of joined in and doesn't know much about you, do you just want to give us a quick intro to who you are and where you're at now?
Well, started in 1943. No, I've been in the industry for a bloody long time. It's been about 24, 25 years. I know I look like I'm still only about 30, but that's the way it's been. So I kicked off with doing directing and cinematography back in the early 90s. Doing some film courses. In about 95, I went to London and did some more films there, first assistant director, a bunch of things with London International Film School, and then wanted to pursue this directing, so got into visual effects. I'd heard that was the big thing. Every director needed to know about visual effects. So like any good wannabe director, I decided to get into VFX and went to CineSite, where I was a runner for a few months in Soho. Some horrible stories over that 3-month period, but some great people that I met during that time. And then kind of over those next few years, worked up from production assistant, production coordinator, VFX co-producer, I should say, and sort of Bond films, Space Jam, Event Horizon, bits and pieces like that. And so some good stuff. And back in the day when you would move machines to move the images to gigantic machines overnight, frame by frame, and renders, you could go down and sink a few pints at the pub, and come back and your render would be 10 frames in or something like that. So really, really good days. And about 2000, headed back to Australia. 4 years in London I was, and then I did a master's in the digital media, which is the visual effects course that Australian Film, Television and Radio School was offering. So a little bit of comping, a little bit of 3D. I was not great at any of those things. I was okay, but I understood the principles. And then sort of headed up to Queensland early 2000s. Had done after film school a bit more producing, some music videos and the like. And then worked on Scooby-Doo as a production coordinator, production manager, working through. The roles were sort of all varied. You sort of looked after a show, and you're answerable to the client and making sure things are running on the floor. Did a bit of database design during that time. Worked on Ghost Ship up there, so more of the horror films, House of Wax, Scooby-Doo, as I mentioned. So quite a range of things up there in Queensland. Probably for about 8 years or so, 9 years was up there, and then headed down to Melbourne to just have a bit of a breath out of the industry, did some sales. And then about 9 years ago, I joined, God, we're still only 9 years up. 9 years ago, I joined Rising Sun Pictures here in Adelaide, and Adelaide sort of has captured me. It's a really amazing city. So, and I finished up July 2019 with RSP, which brings me to today, which is, so I now recruit internationally with PXL Talent. So those years at RSP and up in Queensland at Photon was about recruitment and HR, operations management. I'm sort of bringing all of this stuff together now to be able to talk to people internationally and recruit for companies globally. So some pretty prominent ones. Over the last 12 months, I've been involved with companies, just awesome companies such as Axis Animation, Jellyfish Pictures, DNEG's Redefine, a little bit of work with the likes of Blue Bolt and Important Looking Pirates, here in Australia, Plastic Wax. Look, they keep on coming, the different companies, and it's PXL Talent is myself and Sophie Maid, and Sophie owns the company out of London, and she and I just work on a range of briefs that we get, some 911 hires or strategic ones. We've placed human resources managers, we've placed effects artists, TDs, ATDs, supervisors, just the whole gamut really. So we get a brief and put people on projects and get them going really quickly. So that's good. I've got a network of about 13,000 people, so huge numbers of people that I can call upon within LinkedIn, and we've got a lot of exciting things ahead over the next 12 months with PXL Talent. So yeah, it's great, and I'm working from home, so I'm already in isolation.
Wow. So yeah, that's a whole quick overview. We'll go back and
Big
go.
nutshell.
Yep, you work in recruiting now internationally, which is
Yeah,
pretty exciting.
yeah,
So, but
yeah.
like you said, getting into this, you actually took quite a way around actually fishtailing left and right before you eventually landed in human resources. Do you find that with a lot of
Yeah.
people you talk to?
Oh, look, I guess I'm kind of unique in some regard in that I can speak the language of some technical and artistic aspects of the work. The early years at CineSite were going backward and forward with the 35mm projector, looking at 25 frame shots or 100 frame shots or whatever, and eyeballing it. So my eye has developed over a lot of time, and it was really a friend of mine in Queensland who'd made the suggestion that, maybe with the production background, a bit of artistic background, a bit of technical background, maybe getting into the HR side of things would work out. I mean, I know it's such a cliche, but I absolutely love working with people. I've always loved the intimacy, in a sense, that you get of working through with people's problems and helping them with their career, and it's just I mean, I'm lost without humans, really. So, I know it sounds crazy, but I really enjoy that story of how people can make it. I mean, I've got some great colleagues. I'm not going to name them here, but people that had mentioned they'll never become anything. They don't have an artistic eye in them at all. They just stick them to basic jobs. And I'm pleased to see that those people that I had great faith in are supervisors now and heading up shows now, and some of them are heading up companies now. And so I'm eternally optimistic about people's skill, their opportunity that lies ahead of them. And I sort of combine and smush all of that together. So it's a really easy, the recruitment side actually is it's an easy match when we're working with companies, because we can just talk the language straight away. It's not a so what's the difference between a look dev artist and a texture artist again? We're not like those kinds of recruiters who just go, they know Photoshop. It's we get into a lot more depth about the questions, and we want the best people to be put forward to the client, so the most appropriate people within budget as well. So I love it. I really enjoy it.
Well, you did say that you're working with someone over in London, and you did say that really early in your career you headed over to London. What actually drew you to leave Australia to start off with and go to London?
I had a British passport, so that was really easy, and a lot of family over there. Grandparents, cousins. My sister was living over there. My father and stepmother had just moved across as well, and so it was an easy draw. London and the UK is very much like, it's a second home to me. I mean, traveling sort of along the A30 toward Cornwall is just something that we did for a bunch of time, and I think it's A30. Someone will correct me on that. It's probably A10 or something like that. But so I really loved it. A British passport allowed me to travel within Europe really freely. Initially, the very first thing I did when I was over in the UK was actually head out of the UK to Hungary, to Budapest, where I was attended the third European seminar for for director of photography students, so DOP students, and it was working with Vilmos Zsigmond and Billy Williams, so people that had done on Golden Pond or Gandhi, and the cinematographer for just epic films. Close Encounters is the epic film that Vilmos has worked on. And so you're learning and you're up until midnight talking to these masters. And I just really loved that craft and the artwork that they put into it. And I did a little bit of acting at that time as well on stage. So I've just done loads of stuff. Yeah, everyone's done it. I sold my soul. No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So that got you in there. So you were over there for quite a while. Like you said, you got to rub shoulders with quite a lot of like companies and that over there as well.
Yeah.
So what sort of led you to coming back then, getting out of there?
Oh, do you know, that's actually a really interesting story. And so a client on a project which was Lost in Space was a wonderful producer called Lauren Ritchie, who was heading up New Line Pictures visual effects department back in the back around 98, 99, I think it was, or something like that. And we'd had a really good relationship. In the work that CineSite was delivering for the project was great. We were really responsive with a lot of last minute requests, and it was going really well. And hadn't seen her, Lauren, for a few months, and she came back about 99, and she said, "Oh my God, Marcus, I've been sorry for the accent. I've been traveling around New Zealand, and I've just flown across over Hobbiton, you know, and they're making Lord of the Rings, and she said, you've got to come across." And I said, "Actually, I've just been accepted into the Australian Film, Television, and Radio School. Woohoo!" So I was mid-project, coming toward the end of a Hallmark film called Animal Farm with lots of animatronics. Henson's was involved in it as well, and lots of muzzle replacements. I was working really well on that and loving that, but there was this calling to come back. And I'd gotten to the stage in London where that sort of overcast, you could almost touch the clouds kind of day was just, it was getting a bit too much. I'd lost that sort of spark of you know, being close to a beach or something like that. So I moved back to Australia, and then was soon living in Bondi and was just loving it, you know. So yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so you know, I didn't take up the New Zealand one. I had opportunities more at CineSite as well, but it was just a bit of a chance to understand the language a little bit more. By doing this course, I could then start to speak the language a bit more that the artists were using, and it was just a bit of a mystery to me, most of the technical stuff in the really early days. A guy called Martin Weaver, who's a wonderful guy who was head of technology at CineSite at the time. I was taking minutes in meetings as the assistant to the head of production, and he kept on talking about someone called Holly. Holly's not well today. Holly's down, and I kept writing the minutes and sending it back to him and going, these are right, you know. And I'd put, Holly is unwell. And he knocked on my door of the office, and he came in and he said, "You haven't met Holly, have you?" And I said, No. Every time I go looking for her, she's not in. So he took me to a massive machine room where there was this gigantic, I think it was an Onyx, a huge machine. And he said, and it had Holly written on it. I was like, oh, okay. Holly's a machine. Holly doesn't need coffee. She needs, you know, power. So, so that was kind of embarrassing, but it's you know, but in visual effects years, I was 10, you know, it was just a minnow then. So I've learned a lot over the years. Yeah.
That's brilliant. So while you were in Sydney, you know, like Sydney in Australia, for those who don't know, Sydney's almost the hub for where you know, the special effects industry grew out of. What sort of come up that drew you out of Sydney? Was it someone again who said, "Oh, we've got something, we really want to pull you out of Sydney," or how did you move on from there?
From Sydney?
Yeah.
So I did a little bit of work, like I'm talking fraction, a moment of a day in time it was, with Animal Logic on Moulin Rouge, which was, they had a Crow's Nest office and a Fox office at the time, and I was looking to move something, a huge shot from one place to another, and it was sort of, I was looking after, and then the shot was dropped, and so it was a really short amount of time. I'd worked on some music videos around that period as well. I come out of film school, and like every film school grad, you know, thought I could conquer the world, and was actually just waiting for the phone to ring, and it didn't. So I put myself out there, and said just returned from London 12 months ago, just completed a master's in visual effects, lots of production experience. And within 24 hours, I had 7 offers of work. That was an ad that I'd put out on DLF. It was very short. And it was picked up by someone at a company on the Gold Coast and a woman called Neve Lyons, I think it was. And Neve said, put me forward to the head of production, a guy called Dan, and within a week I was on a plane and I was up there. So this was mid 2001, I think it was, somewhere around that time. So
wow.
And it was there for the next 8 years, and working at on the backlot studios there, and worked up to operations manager, was showing clients around with the head of studio, Lynn Benzie, that would come in, studio tours would come in, and I'd open up the model shops and things like that, and it was just, it was a great time. But I really needed to, again, I'm sort of been nomadic for some time. Adelaide's probably been the one place out of everywhere I've lived that it's just been sensational. London's fantastic. Sydney was amazing as well. But there's just this great feel, this great food, great people, great vibe about Adelaide. So I'm kind of stuck here in a way, but it's a good thing. So
yeah. Well, let's just kind of get down into Adelaide, because Adelaide, like you said, Adelaide's an odd sort of city in the Australia landscape, because it is, it's not on the east coast where most people are. So, how do you find, since you've actually seen the rest of the world, how do you feel about Adelaide as a place to live and work?
Look, it's got so much going for it. It's such a best kept secret in Australia even, and having been on the east coast, I've heard firsthand how people in the bigger cities often regard people, or Adelaide itself, small country town, city of churches and things like that. But look, the people are just so lovely. I've moved back back to Melbourne, where I'm originally from, after 20 years, and didn't make any new friends after over an 18-month period. And we were living in the suburbs, well away from the city, long drives to get anywhere, and it was really tough. We came to Adelaide and we found a house pretty quickly in the street. Within the first week, we had a neighbour coming around saying, "I see you've got a dog. I'm taking mine for a walk. Would you like to join me?" And we had an invite from a neighbour. Street Christmas party is coming through. Look, just bring a plate. Just everything was lovely. Friends, really nice friends who've become, I think lifelong friends now. Said, look, if you need help looking after kids and things like that, then it's just a community feel, and it's not cliquey. It's not like there's people people have been here forever and they guard their patch. It's used to people coming in and out, so it's really nice. It's a great city. Restaurants are amazing, bars are great, they're incredible, and so I feel more South Australian, Adelaidean, than any other, if that's a term. So I'm not quite Adelaidean because I don't know if that's the term, but I feel wholly South Australian now, I can say.
Yeah. That gets you, like you said, you're working internationally now quite a lot as well. How do you find working with international clients? Do they try and contact you? Do you get a lot of people actually hunting you down and headhunting you to approach people?
Yeah. So through PXL Talent, I guess through Sophie and myself, we have built. It's hard not to sort of talk about it as if I'm big-headed about this, but look, we have built a good reputation through building that rapport with individuals. So over the years, we may have interviewed people and given them some direct feedback that many people don't, or tried to contact them. And by the way, not saying that I've always had a chance to contact absolutely everyone back from an application. It's impossible to, I think. But largely, we've built that sort of rapport with people, so that there's a very good level of trust that we've built up. And I think that those people tend to come back to us because we're not going to spend, as a recruitment company, we're not going to spend, weeks on a brief trying to understand what the hell a technical director does, or, what's the difference between a shader writer and a look dev artist or texture artist. But we know what tools. While I can't operate the software, well, I haven't done for 20 years.
Yes.
I worked on Flame briefly and Maya briefly, but in no way call myself an artist. So, but we understand many of the aspects about how it operates, and what, understanding aspects about what makes good modeling, and we can look at great animation, and we can give people pointers. A lot of people always say that recruiters are the gatekeeper to the interview. It's largely true. You've got to pass the initial mustard test in order to get to the next stage, and that involves, you've got to have work that's in alignment for what the company's after. Like everyone in life, people and one of my flaws is that I can't stand rejection. Let me qualify that by saying that I'm used to being rejected, but I don't like putting people forward to a position when I've got a strong confidence that there's some good match there, and getting a negative response. Therefore, I'm more likely to put forward people that aren't just high chance and high risk, but have got a higher chance of getting through. And I will qualify that, Kim, by saying that in recruitment, a no is okay to receive from someone, to say to my internal client that they don't want that person, and here are the reasons why. I definitely need the feedback about why. A yes is fantastic that they want to move through. The worst is a maybe. And that indecisiveness comes from project uncertainty, maybe an evolving brief, maybe the first tranche of work that they had through bidding looked like one piece. They got that under control. Maybe it's a decision between matte painting and environment work, or it could be a range of reasons. Thanks. But the maybe land is hard, because then I've got to almost like some sort of real estate agent get back to the applicant and say it's a no. I think, I'm not sure. Hold back, and you lose a lot of people in that delay. So being quick in recruitment is a naturally strong thing to do. We love it when people know what they want and are ready to make decisions. I have had clients where candidates have actually said to me, thanks for the offer for the position, but I'm not going to take it, because each person who interviewed me had a completely different idea about what the position was. So the recruiter also has to do a little bit of people management internally to make sure everyone's on the same page. I want a supervisor who's good with clients. I want a supervisor who takes care of the floor only, and I want a producer who's executive level, or I want a producer who manages the team. And there are traits that some people are stronger at than others, but not necessarily all of them.
Yeah. So that's a lot of your role, is actually just matching the person with the right skills into the position that is available, and not just throwing people who are close to actually fitting. You just go, it's like as an artist, you throw a lot of mud on the wall, and you just see which one sticks. But you're kind of in the middle, where you go, I just actually want to I'll put forward the ones which are going to stick, rather than throwing lots of mud.
And that then becomes a challenge. One of the dilemmas I would have sometimes is that if a candidate has applied and I'm on the edge about whether I think that they're all right, but I want to put them forward, usually that intuition serves to be right. There's very rare occasions where I'd be surprised now, with 24 years or so of industry experience. Yikes! I'm very rarely surprised by a client's response. If they were to turn around and if someone I'm thinking about isn't quite right, and the client says they're brilliant, they're everything that I'm after, that indicates that I'm sort of not in sync with them. So it doesn't happen very often. But the dilemma is that if I've got somebody who is thinks that they're fantastic, but the client doesn't want them, the client often doesn't have time to even give direct feedback about what's not working, but the individual wants that. So I'm again, because I love people, I would want to try and be honest with that individual to say, look, I reckon try this, and this. Let's adjust this angle next time we approach a company or something like that. So we'll try a few things, but if it's up to the individual. I had an artist once, I'll be really broad about this, who said to me, and there's thousands of stories, but one artist in particular who I had a huge amount of trouble getting to interview, finally convinced the supervisor that they were worth a shot. And I called this person the night before the interview, and I said, look, I've managed to get an interview. Look, it was a bit hard. The work on your show reel and what's on your resume doesn't quite match what I'm hearing when we speak. And there's a bit of a mismatch in your marketing. And the response I got was, well, that's weird, because every other company that I've worked with has never had a problem with my application. Something up with your company then. And it was just such this distasteful moment where I've gone out of my way, pushing, trying to get them a seat at the table. And I got this, well, you guys have clearly got things mucked up. And look, that good stories like that, they're everywhere. They ended up getting a job. They've got a great career, very happy for them. And but so it's fraught with danger when a recruiter provides feedback, and because you get a lot of people who say things like, well, I've been in the industry for 20 years, so what's the problem? Well, so you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't sometimes. But.
Yeah, I like that one. That one's quite funny. You sit here and go, oh yeah, I've been in the industry for 20 years. I've had the one seat at the one company and we've done it our way, so I'm good at doing that. But trying to find me somewhere else might not fit in there. But
and sorry, just on that, it's true that the industry that we're in, and this is a cliche to some extent, many people may have heard this before, but we are in the industry of change. you have to adapt. Cineon was used as a compositing tool. Illusion was used. Flame in various forms have been used over the years with Discrete and Autodesk, and Nuke now, Shake, of course. It's sort of, if you fail to keep up, and if you were still using Shake, which no one does, but if you're still putting that forward, or you were only ever sticking to After Effects and you'd heard about this thing called Nuke, you've just got to keep on pushing yourself. At the moment, those GPU tools that are becoming popular are fantastic. Unreal Engine with its new release coming out, that's going to open up a world of opportunity for people, I think. So, and everyone's now looking for that kind of person, that dexterity of tool. They can do Maya, they can use some, they can sculpt it as well. They can do a little bit of Unreal. All sorts of engines. So.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good point, especially when you're talking with people again. Is a lot of people always ask, should I specialize in some particular area, or should I just try to be a generalist in lots of different things? But I mean, it comes back down to the artist that you actually are by yourself. Because not every animator wants to push a camera around and be a previs artist. Not every studio you apply for is going to want someone who does camera as well as all the background motion and the character animation. So, as an artist, you've really got to be comfortable in yourself to go, what am I actually good at? What do I enjoy? And what am I going to put forward? But in that as well, definitely keep your skills up as well.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's long range, the discussion about generalist versus specialist, and the answer is, I think wherever the job is, at times you have to be able to adapt. And the people that have caused, I would say, the most angst in companies that I've worked with over the years have been those that have said, I only do this. This is my area of specialization, even though there is a track history of them being able to do other stuff. That versatile individual who isn't just going to put, I don't know what it is. There's some magical career path that everyone sees themselves following a particular direction. But if you think about a really good CG supervisor, they have been a generalist and they have been a specialist. They have got all bases covered so that they can talk to someone in layout. They understand aspects about modeling and texturing and how that integrates with effects and what animators need. So if that person had only been a look dev artist, texture look dev modeler, lighter, that sort of area, then they're still missing a huge amount of skills from their base. So I think that the best people are those most flexible that have got this dexterity in being able to move from place to place. So I know it's a lot of people hate hearing it, but I think that if you can maintain a generalist skill set as well as focusing on being a specialist, but at least keep an interest in other areas, your opportunities are going to be global. They really global. And by global, I don't mean just international. I mean with any type of company. You could, if you're in a down patch and there's no work in your area, you could try your hand at architectural visualization. There's some great companies in Adelaide, in Australia, internationally. And that quality is becoming so high that you can achieve a photorealistic look now. Equally, if you wanted to be an effects artist, well, there's great opportunities for that. And I've had some people that have said, I only do fluids, that's all I do. And you try some RBD, get into some destruction and try it more naturalistically, make it rather than magical effects, try something that's a bit real. And so I think life's too short just to really focus on one small thing, and any of those opportunities where you develop a broad skill set, who knows where that could lead. What we're doing today isn't what we'll be doing in 10 years. We know that from the industry change. So
yeah. So to go on with that, like you're saying, you've got clients around the world. Can you just kind of give me a bit of feedback how you think the industry is sort of shaping up? As in, Australian government is now funneling lots of money to try and get film and feature film over here in Australia. Each government, each state now has their own regulations about how much they're trying to put money in to attract big Hollywood films. But from a feel, the way you sort of feel the industry's going, how do you think that Australia's sort of fitting in, as in demand for specialists, special effects, film artists?
Look, I'm not so sure about the rumors. So a bit of this is based on gut feel, Kim, I think. But I really, after many years of watching the Australian industry, it seems to sort of go ebb and flow. There's big projects that occur in Sydney and the Gold Coast. There's companies that come and go. It's a moving feast. But I worry to some extent, in particular in Australia, that there's been a lack of certainty, from a range of companies, probably, of being able to provide consistency. COVID doesn't help our situation at the moment, but I don't know. I feel that the push needs to be a lot harder to attracting people across to Australia as a destination, and allowing individuals to be able to have more of an opportunity to choose between a range of companies, and to that end, possibly increasing the collaboration between animation and VFX companies in the country as well. I recall working in, historically, from a community perspective, in Soho in the mid to late 90s, there was this great sense of community where a client would be sending their Bond film, for example, around 7 different facilities: Framestore, CFC back at the time, the Mill, MPC, CineSite. So all these companies were involved. And what was lovely was that someone from Framestore would call up CineSite where I was working and say, look, Sharon and the client are on their way over. They'll be there in 10 minutes. They've just finished up with their dailies with us, so they'd sit in the cinema and watch it. And there was this great sense of community where files were really nicely shared between companies. There'd be industry events. We're pretty spread out in Australia geographically, so it makes the centralisation of that difficult. You can't walk down to your Nelly Dean down in Dean Street in Soho and have a drink with people from 5 different companies in the area. And equally, I know there is collaboration. I know projects like Peter Rabbit get out to a few companies. Baz Luhrmann, anything Baz Luhrmann's good as well. It was always good because he always spread it out to a lot of Australian companies. So, but promoting that there's this great communication and organisation between companies, and highlighting that, rather than it being perhaps more competitive, that isn't it amazing what we did here, we did this, but we worked together to produce this great result, might be a marketing opportunity, perhaps promote more work here.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective on it, because Australia is very competitive, basically geographically, because you look at the cities, each different city might have 1 or 2 big companies in it, and that's like who gets the work. And as an artist, you're always trying to end up getting to one of those big companies. And from my experience, you get there for a project, and it's like, okay, project's over.
Now what?
Now what?
and so I think marketing that opportunity of marketing capacity. I'm not a marketing specialist. There are people that do this really well, obviously, but I'd love to see opportunities where companies can sort of indicate to the client base, to the market, that they've got capacity in certain areas to take on work. It's obviously difficult to do that because you don't want to say that you've got idle people if you've got another show in house, etc. But so who knows?
Yeah,
but it's a future thing.
Yeah, just on that, because I know you just kind of touched on that, because that's something you've sort of started developing, isn't it?
Well, I'm part of, through some family involvement. My late stepfather tragically passed away after a very brief 9-day illness in 2.5 years ago, and he was in process of developing a AI-based project management software, initially and predominantly geared toward the visual effects and film industry. And it's in stages of release at the moment. It's called Janus K.A.T.E, Janus Knowledge Systems. And it's doing really well. There's a legacy that I feel compelled to help keep that alive with through some involvement. There's a client internationally that, or someone I'm speaking to in particular, that needs particular help with management if they're Excel based, and they may have the shotgun back end in place, but giving people tools where they can see very clearly how the project health is for a range of projects, range of sites, understand where capacity is. So if they've got idle capacity in their team, then they can, quickly fill that. They can indicate if somebody's got primary and secondary skills. So it's a bit of it's from bidding through to completion, largely that the management and ownership of that of that data is what this software does. And a lot of scenarios are plugged in there as well, so you can, if you've got particular types of work, maybe it's roto-based prep work that's required, you can, or beautification, you can have a template that you can drop in, and then it'll auto schedule that out as well. So, and then look at your existing resources and work out, can you do this project? What else do you need? Because in recruitment, we're used to getting a project given to us overnight, and it could be as much as we're bidding this, we're feeling pretty good about it. We want to, if we get it, it starts next week. Who have you got? And so we face a logistics challenge of not just sourcing immediately who's out there, but then making them available inside the facility. And if that involves international flights right now, that's challenging. If it involves remote work, do you have to get a machine to them? They've got a secure location. There's so many factors. Australian immigration in particular has, over the years, has made it very, very hard for this industry to be responsive to client needs, because if you've got a shortfall of crew, and you've got someone coming in from, Los Angeles even, who needs to be fingerprinted and go through an FBI check, or if you've got someone coming in from Asia who needs a tuberculosis test, and needs an English IELTS test, that you're talking massive delays on top of these processes, and that's where this industry can work immediately. It can just take on people straight away. It can take on jobs straight away. Rather, you can be working on $1 million project next week, but if you don't have the people to complete it, then you're behind the 8 ball straight away. So I've been a strong believer of making sure immigration just is as smooth as possible. At the moment, companies are using the 408 visa, which is relatively cheap compared with the 482, less cumbersome, less challenges, but there's very little that builds the industry still and allows people to have long-term permanent migration to Australia. There's not a lot of pathways for that for people in our industry. So therefore, when Australia in particular is not the most attractive destination. So look, I shouldn't rant too much. It's easy for me to get on a high horse about immigration. It's better than it was, but it has been better in the past. We've got a long way to go still.
All right, well, thank you so much for sharing some of your inside knowledge and wealth of expertise with the audience, Marcus.
Just Kim wanted to say, look, thanks so much for having me on Anima-saurus. I'm a big fan of what you're doing with this project. It's great to see you again and being as an industry dinosaur, putting yourself out there and interviewing good people. Present company excluded, of course, but good to see that you're doing that. Just as a sort of a final sort of flag waving pitch is that if there are people out there that want to catch up with me and say hello over, maybe they're not in a position to look for an opportunity now, maybe they're unemployed, maybe they're thinking about it in the future. Have a lot of conversations with a lot of people. I never bite anyone's head off. I'm never going to tell anyone that they're an idiot, that they're hopeless, there's no future for them. So get in contact. LinkedIn's probably the best way to do that. PXL Talent has got fingers in a lot of pies at the moment, where as an organization, as a recruitment company, we are so focused on the VFX and animation industry. We've been putting people on DreamWorks projects. We've been putting on people on television commercials for Apple Watch. We've been working on feature films. We've been working across China, India, Europe, London, UK, Ireland, Dublin. Dublin, Ireland are the same thing. A bit of work in Canada. And so look at Australia, of course, as well. So we're pretty time zone flexible. We speak the language that companies are looking for, and just really happy to make connections with people and put them in contact with great companies out there. And then I guess finally, look out. There'll be information coming on Janus in the future. That's the production project software that's being developed. It's in a really great way at the moment. We're getting some demos out there to people. So if you've got a project that's needs any support, you've been using Excel and Word or Google Docs to manage your projects, and you're just not getting that feedback, then this is the kind of thing that's going to rock your world. So So there's a pitch on two fronts.
Brilliant. All right, Marcus. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us. I'll put links to Marcus's LinkedIn in the description below. So until the next time, we'll all say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.